Without objection. Mr. Gaetz is recognized to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here on the august Judiciary Committee, we are charged with vindicating the constitutional rights of our fellow Americans, and our Pledge of Allegiance is a national symbol of pride and unity. And it was a great honor to be able to invite one of my constituents this morning to offer the Pledge of Allegiance. And so my amendment gives the committee the opportunity to begin each of its meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. It gives our members the ability to invite inspirational constituents to be able to share and lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. I offered this amendment to the judiciary rules 2 years ago, and it was defeated, and I'm very optimistic that we'll have a different outcome today. That's the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for his amendment. Support the amendment. Does anyone seek recognition? Gentleman from New York, Ranking Member Nadler.
I would oppose it simply on the grounds that, as members know, we pledge allegiance every day on the floor, and I don't know why we should pledge allegiance twice in the same day to show how patriotic we are. As I said, we pledge allegiance on the floor every day. I don't think this is the most important amendment in the world, but since we do pledge allegiance every day on the floor, I think it's unnecessary.
Gentleman from Louisiana, gentleman, you're back. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hang on. Recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Johnson.
I've not seen Mr. Nadler on the floor when the pledge is done, and most members are not present there, so it's not accurate to say we do the pledge every day or participate in the pledge every day. It may be offered, but you're not there for it. This is the work of the Judiciary Committee. This is the committee that has the charge of defending the Constitution and our fundamental freedoms and defending the very freedoms that the flag represents. And so it's a bit absurd to suggest we couldn't take 30 seconds at the beginning of this important work to do what should be done by all Americans. And so I think this is entirely appropriate. I wish we had done it 2 years ago, and I think we missed a lot of opportunities. I yield back.
Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Johnson, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish 2 years ago that on January 6th, that the insurrection never did happen. And I regret the fact that many members of this committee voted against certifying the election results based on the big lie. And they have continued to promote the big lie and undermine public confidence in our government. And so for us to, amidst these folks who supported the insurrection, to be forced to pledge allegiance to the flag, which should be something that none of us have any problem with, but it's just a matter of, it's ironic that this committee, the ones that would not comply with congressionally issued subpoenas, disrespected the rule of law, would now insist that each and every one of us on each and every hearing date come before this committee and pledge allegiance to the flag. I support the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's very ironic, and I just simply wanted to point that out, and with that I yield back.
With the gentleman,
I'll yield to the gentleman from New York.
I thank you. I just want to take the opportunity. I think it was one of the people over there.
Mr. Johnson.
I think it was Mr. Johnson who said that he hadn't seen me pledge allegiance on the floor. I just want to say I've pledged allegiance dozens of times. Like other members, I haven't always been there at the beginning of the session, but I've pledged allegiance dozens of times, and I plan to continue doing that on the floor. I thank the gentleman.
Gentleman,
Mr.
I
Chairman.
yield back.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from California, Mr. Ice, is recognized.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this amendment might be more important in light of some of the things that have just been said than I even thought it was. This is a committee that needs to come together to defend the Constitution, to recognize the importance of what we do here. And so the fact that on a daily when we meet basis, we do something to remind ourselves of our obligation. Perhaps we should look at our oath of office and not the Pledge of Allegiance, but I think the pledge is shorter and unifying. I regret that my ranking member and my chairman in the last committee digressed from the amendment at hand and the merit of it. And I would hope that all of us would look and say, we've got a long way to go to get back to being a committee that defends the Constitution aggressively and does it on a bipartisan basis. So I think let us all look at this once per hearing opportunity as a reminder of why we're here, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mr. Issa just made reference to how important it is for us to display our commitment to the Constitution and to commit to defend it aggressively. So I'd like to offer an amendment to the amendment, adding in the second paragraph where the chair may designate an individual to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, to add the following language. Provided, however, the pledge shall not be led by an individual who supported an insurrection against the government of the United States in any way. Because I think if we adopt this amendment, then we will be truthful in representing that stating this pledge is an affirmation of your defense of democracy and the Constitution. It's hard to take that claim seriously if, in fact, an individual who in any way supported an insurrection against the government of the United States is allowed to lead the pledge. So I would ask Mr. Gaetz to accept this friendly amendment, and I look forward to supporting it.
Would the gentleman yield for
I first
a
ask
question?
Mr. Gaetz if he'll support the amendment. To make sure that someone who led an insurrection against the United States doesn't make a mockery of the Pledge of Allegiance and stand before this committee with their hand over their heart, claiming to support the Constitution.
Mr. Cicilline, my concern would be if your definition of an insurrection is objecting to electors, then there would be many Democrats on the committee that wouldn't be eligible to lead the pledge, since so many
That's not my definition of an insurrection.
The last Republican president
I'll
to get sworn
concede-
in absent
I'll
Democrat
allow-
objectors was George Herbert Walker Bush.
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Gaetz, I will allow the chairman to determine whether or not someone has participated in insurrection in the United States. I think this language is important.
Would the gentleman further yield?
I'm asking Mr. Gaetz, will you now accept the amendment?
Well, I'm concerned that you may be disqualifying too many of your own members, Mr. Cicilline.
I'm not concerned about that at all. Then agree to the amendment. Let's make this real. If you want to give someone the right to stand before the House Judiciary Committee and lead the Pledge of Allegiance at a bare minimum, let's guarantee that that person has not participated or supported or in any way helped an overthrow of the government of the United States.
Would the gentleman
Seems
yield?
like a simple proposition.
Would the gentleman yield?
Sure.
If you would consider having your language say any convicted felon, I think we would cover not only that group that you're describing, but many more. And I think as the committee of lawmaking in the purest sense, that's really what you're talking about.
No, it's actually reclaim my time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about convicted felons. I'm talking about
Is this
elected.
anyone that you think?
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Issa. I'm talking about elected officials who swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, who in any way participated, supported, facilitated, encouraged the insurrection against the government of the United States. That's not too hard a standard. And if you are not prepared to agree that before you have the honor of leading the Pledge of Allegiance before this committee, at a bare minimum, you've demonstrated a commitment to protecting and securing our democracy, I can't support it. So, Mr. Gaetz,
Yeah,
I
Mr.
know as a
Cicilline,
lover of the Constitution, you welcome this amendment.
A dear lover of it. Mr. Cicilline, you've described the amendment in two different terms. The words have changed. Facilitate wasn't in your original description. It was in the second one. So if you'd like to write out your amendment pursuant to the order of the committee, we can all take a look at it.
I have it writing right here.
Gentleman yield back?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Van Drew.
You know, I'm almost speechless. I wish we could all just, walk out into the streets of America and talk to people and ask them if they believe the Judiciary Committee should stand up, put their hand on their chest, and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which represents all the men and women who have sacrificed, lost their lives, all the men and women who've given so much to this country, the purity of this nation, the greatness of this nation. I'm going to tell you, I don't think we should just do it in judiciary. I think in every committee, and I'm sorry, it's so much work. It takes, I don't know, let's time how long the pledge takes. Does it take 60 seconds, 90 seconds? And I know it's a real backbreaker, but I think it's okay. I think it's okay. We can do that little extra mile, stand up, put our hand on our chest, say what we believe, and reaffirm this America that we love. Come on, this can't be real. I can't believe we're having this debate.
Gentleman from New Jersey, yield? Would the
I
gentleman
yield.
Welcome to the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Van Drew. I actually think this is a helpful illustration for the American people of the change that they've made in the House. And I well remember the fervid opposition by the majority then, the Democrats, to the Gaetz Amendment at the beginning of the 117th Congress. And we've just heard by the commentary that arises from the question of pledge, having a permission to say the pledge, the associations the minority draws when that subject comes up. It's undoubtedly an example of what they deplore when they deride a Make America Great Again majority. They use the acronym MAGA as if it's something bad, to make America great again. And when they think of the Pledge of Allegiance, what first comes to their mind? Insurrection. This is where we've gotten to be, though. As I say, welcome to the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Van Drew. You're seeing it in action already. But I'm sure that once we've gotten this amendment through and make some other progress here, we'll restore this body to what the American people expect it to be. I yield back to Mr. Van Drew.
I believe we will. I believe we can all use the exercise, too, of standing up and putting our hand on our chest. I don't think it'll kill any of us. I really, besides all of the constitutional reasons, all of the greatness, how can we waste time arguing about this? Why the heck can't we just stand up and say we love our country and we love our flag? And if we do that more than once a day, is that okay? I think it's okay. I don't mind doing it at any committee hearing. I don't mind doing it on the floor. I don't mind doing it whenever we have the opportunity. I don't get it. I got to tell you, I just don't get it, and I don't believe America gets it. And I don't believe they think it's the right thing. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to ask the staff to provide a copy of West Virginia Board of Education versus Barnett to every single member of this committee and just briefly read from that U.S. Supreme Court opinion affecting our public school children. If there's any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion or force our citizens to confess by word or action their faith therein. So while I absolutely value our Constitution, I believe that while we're having this discussion, we should also look at what the Supreme Court has said on this matter in other contexts, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I would just point out, no one will force anyone to say the pledge. If you don't want to say it, you don't have to say it. But you don't have to stand, you don't have to put your hand over your heart. If that's what you want to do, God bless you. It's America, you can do that. But for those of us who do want to do that, and today we're led by the gentleman who came from Mr. Gaetz' district with his service to our country, for those of us who do want to stand, put our hand over our heart and say the pledge, I think that's appropriate as well. Who seeks recognition? The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy.
Thank the chairman. And I associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman from North Carolina about welcome to the Judiciary Committee, the 118th Congress edition. And here we are, and the truth is now laid before you. The gentlelady from North Carolina, in raising this particular issue, is raising, of course, in question why the current United States House of Representatives says the Pledge of Allegiance in the first place on the floor of the House, which the ranking member just used as defense for why we shouldn't say the Pledge of Allegiance in this committee room. Because the gentlelady from North Carolina is suggesting to the people of this great country that we should not be standing and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, for it has a phrase in it, under God. because that is what we're standing here and saying.
Mr. Roy, do you yield?
I'll yield to the gentlelady from North Carolina.
I really don't want to get into a colloquy, but please do not put words in my mouth. That is completely false. Completely false. I wanted to just make the point that this committee and every member of this committee swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And while I take great pride in pledging allegiance in its full form when I'm on the floor of the House and in many, many places, we should look at the full context of every issue. Thank you, and I yield back.
Well, I appreciate the gentlelady's comments, and I hope we'll be able to engage in colloquy in that level and all issues here in the Judiciary Committee. But I would again remind the American people that the point that we're talking about here is that point. And we believe that it is important for us to come together and pledge allegiance. When I go to any event in the state of Texas, which I represent, any event, the people of Texas that I represent stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. We also stand up in Texas and pledge allegiance to the flag of Texas. I could add an amendment for that here, but that probably gets a little far afield. But we are here, and I think this is important. Again, this is going to be an amendment. Maybe I have like 1 or 2 minutes of debate, but now we're having a full-throated debate because just like yesterday in the Rules Committee of the House of Representatives, when we offered a resolution saying that we stand to thwart socialism, there was complete opposition by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to standing athwart socialism. Literally, a full debate. No, we cannot stand against socialism in the House Rules Committee. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle. So I just want the American people to understand, in the House Judiciary Committee, we have opposition to pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States. We have questions being raised about whether we should pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and representing that it is one nation under God. We have a Democratic Party that refuses to stand up and say that they oppose socialism and fought it in the House Rules Committee. Presumably will fight it on the House floor. We'll see how the vote plays out. And that is the state of your Democratic Party today. And I would yield to the gentleman from North Carolina.
I think the gentleman from Texas, and I don't know whether I can engage in a colloquy with my good friend from North Carolina through Mr. Roy, but
I would yield time such that that could occur.
I appreciate that. The question that I guess her citing West Virginia versus Barnett begs is she saying that something about this proposed amendment, the Gaetz amendment, to add the possibility of having the Pledge of Allegiance, that somehow offends the Constitution? Is that the purpose? Is that the point that she makes? And if not, what's the purpose of the citation? I yield to Mr. Roy for
I would yield to the gentleman from North Carolina.
All I was doing was quoting the U.S. Supreme Court. That's all I was doing. I think you should go back and ask the author of the opinion what the meaning of it was.
Well, if I might engage and ask for the gentleman from North Carolina, for what purpose? I would ask the gentlelady from North Carolina, for what purpose were you making that citation?
So that the Judiciary Committee could be aware of U.S. Supreme Court precedent with respect to this matter. Maybe not everybody on the Judiciary Committee was familiar with that precedent. It was simply a citation.
And reclaiming my time, I yield to the gentleman from North Carolina.
To the gentleman's point, and it eludes me. It suggests that having the protocol of a Pledge of Allegiance in the operation in the procedures of the House of Representatives is somehow compelling an orthodoxy, which that would be a fundamental change to what we've seen in the practice here. But it is illustrative of the moment that we're in, and I yield back to the gentleman.
The gentleman's time has expired. Not only does it not compel orthodoxy, it says may. You may opt for do the pledge at the start of a committee hearing. With that, who seeks recognition? Gentleman from Rhode Island who is going to introduce the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.